Yarra City Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri people as the traditional owners of the lands now known as Yarra. We also acknowledge the significant contributions of other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders to life in Yarra. We acknowledge Aboriginal elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people watching here today. My name is Sophie Wade, I'm the Mayor of Yarra, and I'm here today with Mandy Nicholson, Wurundjeri Wurrung and Nguarai Illam-Wurrung woman. She's a founding member of the Wurundjeri and a Narrap ranger as well, and is here to talk to us today about January 26th.
Biladunyan wangat naranik Mandy. Wurundjeri Willamik, Wurundjeri Balakut, Mundanai Murup Galara Birarang, Mundanai Kiripik, Mundanai Lalal Bagugung Nugulik. My name's Mandy Nicholson, I'm a Wurundjeri woman, and I also have connections to the Wurrung and Nguarai Illam-Wurrung people. And I acknowledged all of my ancestors, the Spirit River, the Birarang that flows through the heart of Wurundjeri country, and I acknowledged all of my elders and my friends.
So we're here today at Peel Street Park in front of the beautiful Aboriginal Lives Matter mural that's painted here and painted all around this building. I understand that you've got a personal connection to this mural.
Well, this mural was painted designed by my daughter Kaya, and it represents, something that I've felt in these sort of suburbs around here are really open to Aboriginal lives, because often they're not held in such high significance. So we need to really highlight that and make people understand that, we're here, we've been suffering all of this, deaths in custody. There's one that's just happened recently. We're still to have her funeral in the next coming days. So it's something that we really need to highlight for the wider community, and we need to acknowledge it in such a way that it is equal to the wider community. It's something that we need to keep reminding people about, and the designs on there represent that message as well. So the blue circles represent the Birarang or the Yarra River, and the leaves are representing of the managum leaves. So that's what our name is. Wurundjeri, Wurrung means the managum and Jeri is the grub. So that's our signature sort of plant. So that represents us as a people. So we've also got the fist, and that is synonymous for Black Lives Matter. That's been happening here in Australia for so long. This happens in Australia, it is still happening, and we need to acknowledge that.
100%. I think that really woke people up a bit, and it was pretty shocking because we did have the deaths in custody report in just 1991, like that isn't that long ago, and that had somehow dropped out of the kind of public consciousness, I think. So here in Yarra, obviously, we commissioned this work, which your daughter did, and it's incredible. And I believe she also designed the poster, which is this similar design, which has been shown throughout Yarra for the last 2 or so years. And I've seen it on T-shirts and stuff as well, which has been really great. And another thing that we're doing is, so for quite a long time, the City of Yarra has recognised that the 26th of January doesn't mean the same thing to everybody, and that it's not really a day that we can celebrate all Australians or being Australian when there are some people who are so left out of it. We've also, in partnership with our Yarra Nagana committee, decided that on the 26th of Jan and a few other significant days throughout the year, including National Sorry Day and the anniversary of the Deaths in Custody report, we'll be flying the Aboriginal flag at half-mast. So I just wanted to ask you, what does 26th of January mean to you?
Well, firstly, I wanted to acknowledge the fact that you guys have acknowledged that. It's a day that represents rape, murder, destruction of culture, genocide, language, families being split up. And it's not a day to celebrate for us. It's a day that we can share with others. We have events all day. Usually when COVID's not happening, we're running around at all these different events, but we will not do the citizenship ceremonies through councils, because I think that's something that these new Australians need to understand, that it isn't a day to celebrate. But if we wanted to celebrate a full, all of Australia together, it should be on a different date. And it also is something that councils can take on board as well, because you can have a cultural event, a cultural immersion event and a cultural exchange event with all these new Australians, because they've got these beautiful cultures that enrich Australia and enrich individuals around them. So why not have that cultural exchange on a different day and say, look, welcome to this country, and do it properly?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I believe Yarra usually does do some more events to recognise the day as a day of mourning, but as you've said, COVID has meant that we're doing this instead this time. Do you have any plans for this particular 26th of Jan, or all COVID dependent?
Well, I think everything's gone online. We usually do a morning service, a dawn morning service, where we go to the King's Domain, which not many Melburnians may know about, but it's literally near the Sydney Mire Music Bowl, and there's a plaque and a rock. So what happened there was a lot of the ancestral remains were replaced there. Some of them were unprovident, so not sure where they're from, but we needed to put their souls to rest. So we buried them there a long time ago now, and we go there to honour them, and we go there to honour those that died in the frontier wars, because those wars are something that's also not really well known in Australia, and it's not recognised. And we go there and we celebrate those people, but we also acknowledge all of those people that died in the massacres, and we read them out. We read the places where the massacres were happening, and we actually sit there and read every single one of them. And they're the ones that are only recorded. There's a lot that weren't written down. They were hush-hush. So it's something that it should be, again, on the same level as any other dawn service for other major events that happen.
Yeah, I attended that dawn service at King's Domain last year. It was moving, horrible, but really, really meaningful. And I think hearing those names and not having heard them before, that was difficult. It's difficult that that's not something that we recognise more regularly. So is there anything that you could recommend to residents of Yarra, community members of Yarra, something that maybe they could do to mark the 26th of January?
Well, COVID again has really messed everything up. We had the dawn service happening, but that's going online. So just jump online. You can go to the Vic NAIDOC Facebook page. They'll have that live streaming. There's also the Share the Spirit Festival, but I think it's sort of touch and go whether that will go ahead. But minus the COVID stuff, what you could do, hopefully by next year everything will be back to normal. You can do the march, which ends up being at a massive concert. It's usually happening at Sydney Mire Music Bowl or down at the Treasury Gardens area. And that's a really family-friendly, fun day, but it's also acknowledging that day as a day of mourning, survival day. And there's also other things that the councils may be holding that our community can go to support that cause. And it's always good to have allies, and the more allies the better, because it's about acknowledging and shining a light on something, the dark history of this country, rather than sweeping it under the rug like all of us went to school and didn't hear any of this stuff. So the real true history is coming out, and it's not about, oh, poor us, poor us. It's about acknowledging that this has happened, and the aftermath of that still affects us, the transgenerational trauma, and it will into the future. So when we get those more allies coming in and say, yes, we actually acknowledge that this happened, and is there anything else that we can do to help, that would really be great.
Speaking a little bit just about the history of the 26th of January, so my bit of Yarra is called Nichols Ward, and it's named after Sir Douglas Nicholls. And I believe he was involved in one of the first events that was recognising 26th of January as a day of mourning decades ago, well before that day was recognised as a national day for everyone, which is quite interesting. And I was wondering, do you have any insight into the history of how recently was the King's Domain event started? And
yeah, well, in the 30s there was a movement that was trying to highlight the rights of the Aboriginal people, First Nations people of this country, and this was before we were recognised as citizens until the 60s. So that movement eventually created the Aboriginals Advancement League, and that was something that started under a tree. I believe it's in the City of Yarra area. I don't know if the Museum of Victoria is in the City of Yarra.
Just outside?
Just outside, because there's a tree there that people would have meetings.
Oh, wow.
And that's that's where it all started. From that movement, we needed to have a day be created to acknowledge, that day of mourning properly. And it was in the 90s. I think it was in July, or I can't remember the date specifically, but it never used to be on January 26th until about 1996. So all these people saying, oh, that's our day, it shouldn't be changed, it's been like that for a long time. 1996 isn't that long ago, and it's had maybe 3 or 4 different day changes that Australia Day happened. So I think people are a bit they forget things, or they choose not to look at things, or they ignore things, where it isn't about grabbing that date and say that's something that we as a wider Australian community can grab hold of it than being that day. It was different days. So the movement is still happening. We had every rally or march that we do on Survival Day, compared to the Australia Day ones, 10 times, 100 times bigger. And I'm finding every year there's more people coming and more diverse backgrounds coming in and supporting as well. So it's something that get involved with, because it's something that is an Australian thing that everyone should be part of.
Yeah, and something we can all really be proud of.
Yeah.
Like, not many people get to live on the continent with the oldest surviving culture. Like, that's an incredible thing that we can all be a part of.
Yep.